Hey everyone, how you doing? We're going to be starting in about 1.5 minutes. Good to see you all there. And lots of regulars here. Good to see all your smiling faces. We've got Tracy, Michael, Jason, P. Steelman. We've got Stuart Braithwaite, Kevin Smith. All regulars. Good to see you guys again. William Papa. Good to see you. We've got Leo, Thomas, Sherry, Dennis, Tom, Kathy, Cornell, Pigeon River, good to see you again. Andrew Nichols, Rayel, good to see you again. And I like your message there, Andrew. And who else we got here? We got Be Pain Free and Productive. Well, welcome from Panama. We've got about 38 seconds and we kick off. Ronald, good to see you. Ken, good to see you. Joe, Joyce, Deborah, Orcapest, good to see you again. Robert, good to see you. Photomaker, good to see you again. Andy, Klaus, great to see you. And Russ is in the house. So good to see you guys again. Regulars, Gary Peterson, good to see you again from Arizona. Linda and Roy. All right, guys, we're getting ready. Countdown. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Roll it. All right. Hi, everybody. How are you? Welcome to Live from Lockdown, and we are, believe it or not, week number 40. Can you believe that? 40 weeks we've been doing this. Well, this will be our 40th week if we get through this one. So, thanks guys for joining me. A lot of you guys have been here for every single one of those, and some of those names I called out at the beginning, and of course there's others that I haven't shouted out yet. But thanks, guys, for joining us for these 40 weeks of Photoshop learning and fun. Wow, I didn't even know I knew enough about Photoshop to go for 40 weeks. That's 40 hours at least that you guys have done. That's a full working week. And for some people, that's like 2 weeks of work. For some people, it's like 1 day, depending on who you are. But more or less, we've done a full working week of this. So hopefully your guys' Photoshop knowledge has been growing in this time. And of course, I've got plenty more for you. At the end, why don't you guys drop requests and let me know what it is you'd love to learn so I can make sure I'm tailoring the stuff for you. So what we're going to do today is we've got 2 parts. We're going to start for a little bit of a lesson, and then we're going to jump into Fix My Photo, which is kind of like how we started, and I think it'd be nice to kind of get there. Again, let me know what you guys prefer. Do you prefer more, just straight up, lesson and, just example doing stuff? Even though Fix My Photo kind of is, or do you prefer more Fix My Photo or an even balance between the two? Let me know. And if you do a 40-80, the first part of that number is going to be for lesson, and the second part of that number will be for Fix My Photo. Now, of course, when we do Fix My Photo, we don't just jump in and fix the photos. I usually explain, if I'm going to use a tool, I explain that tool to you, and then we'll go in and do it. So it's kind of a learning experience as well as hopefully inspirational. And all the Fix My Photo stuff, we're winging it. So this week I've actually pre-selected the photos I want to use, but as far as the results, who knows what we're going to get. So far we've been pretty lucky. I think we've been hitting it most times. And what we're doing is 2 things there. We're fixing, common problems you guys might be facing with your images, and also just, creative ideas and explorations. But before we do that, today we're going to kick off our headline, or our topic for today is color and how color can help you in your photos. So why don't we just switch over to the different screen setup here, and I'll just pop that over there. And here we are, live from lockdown, week 40. Welcome, guys, for week 40. Can you believe that? Can you guys believe that? It's like been more than 40 weeks. It's been 40 weeks that we've done this, but, this has been lasting longer. But anyway, I'm just going to dive in. We'll do an afterglow at the end where we hang out, do questions and answers, all that good stuff. So I was thinking about color and how can color help you with your photos. Now, this is probably going to be a different approach to maybe some of the stuff you're used to. I really just wanted to simplify it down to what is practical and what is natural. I mean, we can go crazy with this, or we can just do a very, very subtle thing that's just really going to make our photos look a lot better. Now, one of the things I just want to show you, if we go under Window, and this is where we can see all our different things, and we go to our colors, you're going to see, we can choose our colors. Now, if you click on the little tab here, you have the ability to go to a color wheel. Now, this color wheel basically shows us how colors work on a wheel. This was invented like a long time ago, over 100 years ago, I believe. And if anyone knows who the inventor was, pop that down there. In fact, I could get you the information if you want. I just forget right now, but a well-known scientist. But basically, if we look at the colors on the rainbow, they're red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and then there's a question of whether indigo or not belongs, and violet. So red, orange, yellow, green, blue, violet, and then they go in a circle. And of course, violet blends back into red. You've seen the Pink Floyd album cover from Dark Side of the Moon where the light spectrum is split. And this is where we get color. We get the different colors by different wavelengths of light. So there's, ultraviolet that we can't see. So there's wavelengths that are so high frequency we can't see them. And then there's wavelengths that are so low frequency we can't see them. And basically a wavelength is how fast that oscillates. So, when it comes to your eye, it's actually oscillating. The wavelengths, if you see the waves, they could be wide waves, which means they're oscillating slowly, or very sharp, short waves, which means they're oscillating quickly. And if you think about that in pitch or in volume, a higher pitched would be a higher frequency, which would be a higher frequency color. A lower frequency color would be like bass. So just trying to think of it like that. But I mean, you don't necessarily have to understand the science of it. In fact, I probably went a little too much into the science. What we want to think about, though, is when we look at our color wheel, let me take a screen capture of this. And this is a color wheel that we're just grabbing from Photoshop. It's an RGB color wheel, which is, not necessarily the exact color wheel that we would use for... where did my screen capture go? Where are you? There it is. It's not necessarily what you would use, if you were working with pigments or paints or things like that. But essentially, if we take this and we divide it in half, and why don't I just create a layer here, and I'm just going to grab my red pen. Let me just do this quickly. So this is something definitely worth learning here. So we're just going to grab a red. Let me grab my color picker. It's on the other screen. Switch to my mouse. All right, there we go. So let's grab this red, and I want to show you something on the color wheel. This, if you don't know this, this is really going to change the way that you work in Photoshop. So if I cut this, or not just Photoshop, it's going to change everything for you. So you see things like, color temperature. What is color temperature? Now, some people might split this where I did here. Some people might split it over there. There's a couple of different schools of thought. But essentially what we've got on this side here is warm. And what we've got on this side here is cool. So our warm colors, are easy to remember, because they come from things like fire, sunlight, different things like that. So we've got our yellows, we've got our oranges, we've got our lime greens, and these are what are known typically as warmer colors, our pinks. But then we go on the other side, we've got our cooler colors, blues, greens, indigo, if we were going to include indigo, which apparently it doesn't exist, according to some scientists. So the point of this is, if you're thinking about your photo and you really want to make your photo pop, think about the terms of warm and cool colors. Now, these don't have to be blazing reds or blazing blues, but if we influence them just a little bit into the cooler or the warmer colors, we can essentially just really make our subjects pop and just add so much more to our photos. Now, throughout Live from Lockdowns, we've been doing a lot of these Fix My Photos where I'll add a cool color cast or something, and suddenly it gives it an airy feel, a mysterious feel, a night feel. It changes that mood, you know, of that particular image. And as artists, what we're trying to do is evoke emotion. If we're not evoking emotion, we're creating pretty pictures, but they're not really hitting the point, because art is food for the soul. You know, like we eat for our body, we'll have a good steak, or maybe you're a vegetarian and, you know, you'll have some broccoli or cabbage or, you know, quinoa, whatever it is, you're feeding your body. Art, you know, which we talk about, you know, there could be dance, could be music, could be visual art, photography, painting, moves the soul. Yes, sure, it's also a form of visual communications, which is why it's used in advertising. Commercial art is moving the soul to bring that person to the point of making a purchase. It can be used to evoke emotion in different ways. It can be used for documentation, but that's not what we're talking about right now. What we're talking about is emotion. And there's a different emotion between the cooler colors and the warmer colors. Warm colors, you think about, relaxing in the sun, lying in the grass. You've got your lime green grass, the orange sun, the yellow sun beating down on you. It can be that, but it could also be an activity. You go into reds. Reds are more emotional, provocative, passionate colors. You're at a music festival during the middle of the day, and now you're thinking about these brighter colors. You're thinking about these more joyful colors. So they evoke a sense of energy as well as a sense of warmth and safety and comfort. But at the same time, when we go to our cooler colors, they have a sense of calm, a sense of peace, the cool blue waters. So think about that when you're trying to do an overall image. You really want to think about that. Okay, so how can we apply this? How can we make this practical? Okay, so here's an image. And one of the things that's interesting, I got this from Adobe Stock, and I was browsing Adobe Stock, and I noticed that the images that were at the top of the search and the images that were the most eye-catching and appealing had a simplified color palette. So if we're looking at this particular image, we've basically got three different colors going on here. And this is also known as a triad or triadic colors. We've got the blues, even though there's not a lot of blue. Don't think in terms necessarily of saturation, but just of the hue. The hue is the color. Don't think of the saturation, which is known as chroma in painting, or value, which is lightness in, those terms are interchangeable between painting and traditional art and Photoshop. A lot of the traditional art principles apply to what we're doing. Okay, so we've got blue here. So we've got the cool color. What else have we got? We've got the greens. So the secondary color is the green. We're looking at green in the background, green in the solids. Even this bowl has a green in it. And then there's a third color in here. We've got our reds. You can see a bright example of the red here in the tomato or this in the background, but also these browns, the skin tones, the hair. This is all in there. So essentially there's three dominant colors inside of this image. So if we were going to add elements, you wouldn't necessarily want to put something that's bright yellow in there, because then we're moving away from a triadic color, or we're moving away from that simplicity, and it starts to get very complicated unless you're trying to draw attention. So if you put a lemon in here, that lemon would get a lot of attention, and that lemon would be the key thing that you would notice in there. So, if you really wanted to bring attention to that lemon, that would be the way of doing it. Just give me 1 second, guys. All right. So let's have a look at how we're going to apply that right now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this cooler tone and we're going to apply this to the background to change the mood of the photo. So why don't we do that right now? So this is a practical way of applying what we've been talking about. So if I hold down the Alt or the Option key and I'm just going to move around, we're picking up that color. All right, so let's apply this. We're going to create a new layer. Now, of course, I could have created a solid color layer. That would work as well. But it's a little harder to select with the eyedropper when I do that. But notice that when I do apply it, since I've selected that color, it actually does come up as the first color. That's interesting. I just learned something new. All right, so we're just going to click OK. And that's the color that we selected from her apron. Now we're going to change the blend mode of this to a color blend mode. Notice now that we're putting this color over the entire image. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull the opacity all the way down. And then we just want to apply just a little bit. Let's bring it in a little bit. So now it's starting to influence the rest of the photo. Now I want our skin tones to pop, and I want the rest of that image to pop. So all I need to do is select the layer mask. And of course, this is just showing you an example. For real, I'd make a selection, I'll make it perfect. But let's just focus on what we're trying to learn here and not on trying to make a perfect example. All right, so what I want to do is with that mask selected, I want to choose black. And then I'm just going to paint with that black. And now we can let these warm tones come through on our subject. And notice it doesn't have to be that perfect. You can see some areas maybe where I got a little, let me just hit the X key, go to white, and I could just clean it up behind it, right? But once again, just trying to state an example here, not trying to go for perfection, which is hard for me because I want to go in and make it perfect. But see what we're doing here. So if we turn that off, and there's our image before, and there's our image after, see how it's subtle. But now it's bringing those warms and cools together. So this is what we're talking about today, is instead of having that warm background with our warm subject, now we've got the cool background with the warm subject, and notice how it makes our subject pop. Very, very subtle. I mean, especially if we take this opacity really low. If I go very low there, you're barely going to notice. But man, what a difference. Of course I can go really heavy, and then, it's a little much. But let's pull it back a little bit so you can go there. And notice what it's doing. It's simplifying out all the other colors and just bringing everything in. Now, of course, if you wanted to make those greens pop, you could just paint over those greens. If you wanted to, make sure that we get those tertiary colors in there, we could do that. I'm just painting on that mask right now, picking up those areas of green. So we could do that. And also, if you wanted the warmer areas in here, you could pick up some of these warmer areas maybe in the bowl. And now we're controlling where these colors go and how we want to draw or guide the viewer's eye. So now we've got if we look at this, what we've done here is, let me just select a reddish color here. And notice what we're doing here is we've now created an area to bring the viewer's eye into the image. All right, so as you can see, I personally think this makes the image look better. Particularly, if you were looking at it from something, a commercial viewpoint. Let me know what you guys think. So let's have a look again. Here's our before and our after. All right, let's have a look at another image. This is an image that is very, very common. So as you guys know, quite often you can do something like this, right? You're working on this image, and the problem here is there's a lot of color going on. There's too much color, and it's just this could be a great image, but I just feel like it's just sensory overload. It's just too much. So what can we do? Well, I'm looking at this. Let's go ahead and let's think about the colors. What colors do we have in here? We've got the warm colors from the skin tones, the trees. We've got the greens going on here. There's definitely a lot of green in the water, even in the kayak here. The purple in her top is definitely kind of sticking out. Maybe a little much, but we've got blue. So if we're thinking of a triadic, we've got yellows, Let me just mark this up. Look at our yellows. We could even think in terms of yellows in the skin tone. Even though, you know, you're more probably thinking like reds, but we've got the yellows from that color. All right, so then we've got greens. We've got green here. We've got green here. We've got a lot of green going on here. And then we've got blue. So we've got these blues going on in the image. So why don't we take what we learned and let's simplify it. What I'm going to do is apply a greenish tint. So let's go ahead. We're just going to select this. Now, of course, I'm just choosing green. You could choose any color you wanted. I'm selecting green from this image. We're going to create a new layer. And I'm just going to fill that with the green. So that's just Option backspace. We'll fill with that color. All right, just checking here. You guys are tracking with me because I'm noticing that the chat there is. Let me make sure. Just say hi, guys. And let me just check that. Okay, there we go. All right, chat is going good, good, good. Hey, Russ, good to see you. All right, so I'm a little behind the chat. Okay, so the chat was grayed out, but now that's going like crazy. All right, good. Glad this is going well. All right, so why don't we do something with this, even as an olive kind of a color? Let's see where we go with this. So I'm going to change this to a color blend mode. Thanks, guys. Good to see you all there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this opacity down and let's just do this. All right, so what I want to do now is I'm just going to paint away the areas I don't want it. Let's put the mask on. Obviously, we don't want this color in the sky. So let's just paint it out. And I've got a cool, example for you guys that we'll look at soon on, how to do some of these selections. But what we're doing here is we're just kind of simplifying that. Let me hit the X key and let's get the skin tones and let's just get our woman going just to normal. All right, and let's get our guy over here. All right, so now we're just kind of getting that going a little bit. Now, of course, you will make the perfect selections. Much better than what I did. Let's just see where we're at before and after already. Okay, so before and after, we're simplifying these colors. That's going well. But let me change this color a little bit. I'm not super excited about this color. Let's go into here. And maybe what I could have done is, let's just go in here. I'm going to change this color. Let's make it a little bit more green. There we go. Let's make that more green. Put back into color blend mode. Pull that opacity down. There we go. Too much. Let's not go so much. But see what I'm doing? I'm just giving it just a little touch, which is starting to move some of these other colors into the green tones. And we're getting a little bit of simplification going on. So we're thinking about that green is the cooler, the warm colors on our person. So now why don't we do something with her top? So I've got that background layer selected. And what I want to do now is I'm going to go down here and we're going to choose hue saturation. Now with the hue saturation, let me pop it up so you guys can see it. I'm going to grab the little fingery thing and click the selector, I guess it's called. And now we're going to change the hue. And notice by doing that, now all we're changing is just the hue on her shirt. Let's go more towards the blues. Blue-green. Darken that color down a little bit on her. Maybe even drop the saturation down a little bit. Might even brighten it up now. And see what we're doing now that we're moving this or shifting it into these tones. Now her shirt is not dominating. So the first thing you see in the photo is not necessarily her shirt anymore. Whereas before, if we look at this before, a lot of color. Just too much going on, I think. And then after, we can see we've kind of pulled things together a little bit. Simplified the colors in the image, so to speak. So, hey, Susan, don't worry about being late. And for those of you who are just joined us, the replay will be live. It'll go live 10-15 minutes after. It's just kind of how it works with YouTube. They'll post it up then. And we've just been going through some lessons here on how we can use color to influence our photos, working with the cool and the warm colors to kind of complement each other, so to speak. All right, so if you guys are getting any value out of this, hit that like button right now. What that does is just helps us with the algorithm while we're live. It lets people know we're here. And also, if you're watching the replay, if you hit that like button, I appreciate it too, because that also just brings visibility on YouTube, which, as you guys know, is a lot of stuff there. And, you know, it's hard to let people know that we're live. And also, if you guys haven't subscribed, if you're not a subscriber, you should see a subscribe button on your screen there somewhere, probably the lower right. And if you have already subscribed, you don't need to subscribe. But if you haven't, subscribe again. All right, so we're getting ready now, and we're going to jump in, and we're going to do Fix My Photo. I've got some good stuff for you guys, so let's do it right now. And hello, everybody. Welcome to Fix My Photo. And like I said, I've got some cool stuff. We're going to apply what we learned today to the first image, and then we've got some other examples we're going to do. Now, for Fix My Photo, just let you guys know, these are your photos that I'm going to be using. These are photos that were submitted by you. So you guys submit your photos, and there's a few things we need to know. Number one is go to fixmyphoto.net, and you can upload your photo there, and it'll just go to a Dropbox account. The second thing is make sure you put your name in the file name so we know it's your photo, and I can give you a shout out and obviously give you credit for your photograph. And also, I have an interesting thing. How do you guys feel? Because right now we're doing it just on Fix My Photo. If you guys would like the opportunity maybe for me to use those in some of my regular YouTube videos, just put that in there. Drop a comment and let me know right now what you guys think. Do you want me to use them in there, or do you want me to just use them on Fix My Photo? Because sometimes I find a great photo and I'd like to do it there as well. So let me know. Of course, I'm not giving the photo away. Okay, so the other thing is the formats. When you upload the photo, please, if you can, do either the RAW file or the full-size JPEG. And as I said, I'm not distributing those photos. We'll use them and we'll do the examples, but those photos will not go beyond me, so they don't get shared with anybody else. They still belong to you. I claim no rights to them or anything like that. Now, I prefer unedited photos. I've seen some great photos that people have uploaded, but they've already processed them and sharpened them and push the, and it's difficult to work with photos at that point, particularly when they get sharpened or overly sharpened. There's nothing I can really do with them at that point. So try to resist the urge of sticking them up there, for a critique. If you want to critique your photos or you want them critiqued, we're on Facebook, Instagram, and also on Twitter at photoshopCAFE. Follow us, tag them, and tag us on those. Also, Fix My Photo, I start posting these, hashtag Fix My Photo and hashtag Live from Lockdown. So you guys can also follow those hashtags and see the before and afters. In fact, I did before and afters from last week. All right. Last thing about that is no more than 3 submissions per person per week. All right, got that? Great. Why don't we go ahead and see what we can do with the photos that we've got. So the first photo here is Roy Crawford. Thank you, Roy. You in the house? If you are, give us a shout out. Say hello in the chat. And we're going to use your photo right now. Let me just pop this over here. I've got a couple of little notes here. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to start with this. And this photograph was from the Isle of Man. So let's just open it inside of Photoshop. So we're just going to choose to open in Photoshop. All right. Okay, so what we want to do, this is a great photo. It's really cool. I like the composition. You've got the rules of thirds going on here nicely. Foreground elements nicely positioned. But what we're going to do is we're going to bring more emphasis on our foreground, and also just doing what we learned today, just as a practical example. And of course, this is not something you're going to use on every photo, but let's just apply it. We're going to go for the warm and cool kind of a feel. So what I'm going to do is let's select a nice cooler color. So why don't we use hue saturation? So I'm just going to go in here. We're going to use the hue saturation, and we're going to reduce the saturation way down. Now I want to add a color, so we're going to colorize this. So we turn on the colorize button, and then we're going to move the hue over to the cooler tones. Let's go somewhere between the blues, just where it's starting to get into the purples, right in that area where it's not, maybe a little more, it's not quite purple, not quite blue. All right, so we want to go into that kind of a feel, and let's take the saturation down even lower. So I just want a hint of color. Great. See how we got just that little hint of color there. And now what we're going to do is we're going to pull our opacity down. If we take the opacity all the way to nothing, this is what we have. But let's pull it up just a little bit. In fact, I'm going to go a little bit more than what I want so we can dial it in later. And notice already we're changing the mood of this photograph. It's giving it a little bit, just a softer, more pastel look. And one of the mistakes that people do sometimes is too much color, too much sharpening, too much contrast, and too much saturation in colors. And sometimes just pulling back in some of these areas, particular contrast and saturation can just give your images a more rich kind of a feel to them, a more expensive feel. But don't worry, we're not done yet. So we've put some cooler hues on here, but we want to bring back our warmer hues so we can create that counterpoint, that balance, or that contrast. So what I want to do is we'll go to the color channels. And if we click here on each channel, we can see here's the red channel, the green channel, and the blue channel. So those three color channels combined make up our photo. In fact, when you shoot with your camera, it's essentially bringing back those images through little colored filters, and those colors are mixed from those three channels of color. All right, so or there's three different color sensors, so it actually captures that, and you'll see those. The green is the most dense, of course. All right, so what we want to do is look at the reds. So the reds, notice some of these areas are very bright and some of these areas are darker. The brighter areas contain more of that color. So the brighter areas are the areas that contain more red. The darker areas are areas that contain less red. And the reason for that is because we are working with light. Now obviously there's also the luminosity. The white areas are going to look white in every channel. It doesn't matter because it's white. But when we get into areas of color, like look at this icon here. Notice how that changes depending on which color. Okay, so we want to do the red channel. So I'm going to hold down the Control or the Command key and click. And this loads the selection from the red channel. So essentially what we're doing right now is a form of luminosity masking. Essentially it is luminosity masking, but we're using it with color. So maybe it's a chromatic luminosity, a chroma luminosity, lumichroma. I don't know. I'm making up these terms. Let's call it a chroma luma. Let's just call it that, just for fun. All right, so now that I've loaded up these areas, notice when we look on the image, our warmer colors are all selected because those warmer colors have red. If we look at the channels, we've got red, green, and blue. Blue is cool, red is warm, and green could be either. It's kind of somewhere on that line between warm and cool, depending on what shade of green it is. Green can be a very cool, cold green, like a dark forest green, or it can be a warmer color when we start to get into a lime green. All right, so what we're going to do now is choose this mask. With this mask selected, I want to paint back these areas. But now I've got the marching ants. I want to keep these selections active because this selection is going to help me paint where I need to paint, but I don't want to look at the marching ants. So the way you can do that is to hit Control or Command H for hide. And you can also find this under the View menu. If you go under the Show, you can see Selection Edges. Watch what happens if I hit Command H. So let's go here, View, and then we look here, Show, the selection edges are now hidden. This shows that they're on, but they're hidden. So Control or Command H will show or hide them, or you can go under the menu, View, Show, Selection Edges if you can't remember that. Okay, so those selections are active, but we're not looking at our marching ants. Great, so let's go into this wheel. Notice as I paint over here, it's helping me paint in on the red. I don't have to worry about going over the edges because those warmer colors are selected. So I'm just painting here with black. We've got black for the foreground color, 100% opacity and flow, and we're painting into the mask, and we're getting that. So the thing that could really make this pop, we've got this more pale background, but what if we could bring out some of the warmer colors in the trunks of the trees? So all we need to do is just paint in here, and in the trees here, we can start to bring back some of those warmer tones in the trees, in the wood. Now, depending on what kind of trees you're working with, about to sneeze. Sorry about that. I turned the microphone on mute so you guys didn't hear it. Now I'm just going over here and I'm just getting some of that warmer tone back into some of those the trunks there. Now, some trees, of course, are going to get this more than others. And of course, some of the color in some of these trees here are also going to be selected because they're warmer. And I want to let some of these warmer tones through as well. So what we're doing is we're unifying the cooler tones more into that, adding that little purple there, and it's just bringing those together. But we're also allowing these nice warm colors to show through as I'm painting these out. See what we're doing here? And I'm just painting over there. And let's have a look and see what we've done. Control D will turn off that selection. And if we look at it, there's our before and there's our after. Let me just overemphasize this so you can see what's going on. See, we've got those cooler areas and we've got the warmer areas. I mean, we could let the warmer area maybe through in this grass in the front, maybe part of it. But you want to be a little careful with that. In fact, let me reduce that opacity. And I just want to slowly blend that in. I went a little too much there. And let's bring the flow down. And I'm going to be careful that I'm not bringing this all the way up to the edge because I want the cool at the edge so the attention goes into the center of the photo. All right, so that's full. Now, if we turn this off, there's the original. So what we're going to do is just dial in how much of this do we want. And see what we're doing now is we're adding a little bit. That's way too much. Even a small amount like that, if we look at that before and after, I would actually even go that low, maybe a little more so you guys can see it. And see what we're doing is we're just unifying that background, simplifying that background. And then it's allowing more of the viewer's attention to go onto the subject. And there's just a little bit of that warm tones in there so it doesn't feel monochromatic. So we just don't have all those different shades of green. Kind of like what a painter would do with a more limited palette. As we look at that before and after. Does that make sense to you guys? You know, so hopefully I see some great green comes out, but green is cool. Have you any warm red choices? Well, you know, the greens are, it's okay to have a little bit of that green because what I'm doing is I'm not doing the really cool greens. This is for Polka Dot Studios. We're doing the warmer greens like the yellows. See how we're picking up the greens with more yellow in there? We're not enhancing. If we turn this up, see the cooler greens are not being enhanced. I'm only bringing out the warmer greens. See that? I made a little bit of exception there for the grass, just for, you know, which is why I just wanted to blend it and not go full strength there. So, yeah. So we are, so it's okay to get those warmer tones and to mix some of those or speckle some of those warmer tones in there with the cool tones, because otherwise the image is going to look too monochromatic and it's going to look too flat. So this is essentially what we're doing. So we're taking those cooler tones and pushing them more into a single hue, which is kind of like what you would do in shadows too. You know, if you've got the shadows, you would want to push those shadows into that ambient color, which is essentially what it's going to do there. All right. Yeah, the grass is Polka Dot Studio. The grass here was just kind of an afterthought. I don't know if you were there when we painted that. It doesn't have to be like that. I just wanted to, let me paint the grass away. Let's just go here so we can go back to reducing it. So why did we do the grass? Because it's a sense of it, just this green here. Like, let's pull that back just to show you. See, it's not changing the grass a whole, oh, actually I went the wrong color. Let's go to the cooler. There we go. So, there's a choice. I could leave the grass more like that if we wanted. But the reason I warmed up the grass a little bit, I'll tell you why. It's because the grass is leading the person into the building. So I didn't mind making that pop a little bit more because it's also leading the viewer into the photo. It's the path that you would walk into there. Now, that's personally, is it just a personal choice or an artistic license, so to speak? So we're breaking away from the rule a little bit with that. And, if you guys like it or don't, let me know. You like the grass warmer or cooler? Let me know in the comments. Once again, just total creative choice. All right, let's go into something else. And this time, we've got Gigi has given us this wonderful image of the Taj Mahal. And why don't we just open this as an object? So we're not going to do anything to it yet. I'm just going to do it as a smart object. And I'm going to rasterize the top layer. And the reason I'm doing this is just so I can save this for later. So we can do kind of a before and after. All right, so here's the challenge. We've got this beautiful shot of the Taj Mahal. Now, if you took a whole ton of pictures, I could show you how to get rid of the tourists. In fact, I have a tutorial on that using stack mode. So check out tourist removal. You can find it on photoshopCAFE.com or on the YouTube channel. And I'll show you how to remove all the people. I did it in Hawaii a couple of years ago by doing that. But what we want to do is we've got the scaffolding. Isn't it annoying when you go there, once in a lifetime opportunity, and there's scaffolding there? What do we do? All right, so let's have a look at the quickest and the easiest way to do it. And this is the perfect time to use content-aware move. Now, the only problem with content-aware move, let me show you, is if we go down here, we make this selection, we can move this over and replace it. This simply, boom, and we're sort of done, but the problem is it's removed it away from there. Now, if you look under the options, we've got move and extend. So with extend, we can use this for interesting things like stretching things like this, making people taller, making buildings taller. But one of the things that I noticed with this option called extend is you can actually use it to copy something. So it will copy as long as it's not touching the other object. Oh, great. Now there's another option that I want you guys to turn off. If you look at the top here, you'll see there's an option here, transform on drop. This is on by default. Let me show you what happens. So if we do extend, let me show you. We can move this over here. Obviously, it's not the one we want to do, but when we apply it, its transformation is already done. So that means if I go in here and I change these settings, nothing happens. Well, actually, a little bit does happen. Okay. All right, so this is what I want to show you guys. So what I want to do, though, is let's undo that. So we're going to turn on with the transform drop. Let me go back here. I want to make sure that transform on drop is turned off. And we're going to extend this. And let's have a look here. Now we're going to drag this. We're going to drop it over our image. Release it. Control H to hide our selection edges, and you know what? That's actually looking pretty good. All right, so I think we can just apply that. We're good. Control H turns it back on, and let me just make sure I did this right. Yeah, I did. See how when I turn that structure down, you can start to see that. So the point of this is we can just adjust our settings, and I said that Control H again to make sure that we're getting our background. See if that's not blending in perfectly, just play around with the color settings. See how I'm starting to get a little color showing through there? Let's go the other way. There we go. And now that's blending in perfectly. So what we're looking for is this area to blend in with the surroundings. Control D to deselect. Now you could just go in and do some little quick selections in here, little corrections here. We could grab our clone stamp tool and let's select that area. Alt or Option will give us our area that we're selecting. And let me turn that off. Let's zoom in a little bit. All right, so we go in here, we're just selecting that, and we're just going to clone it out. There we go. And maybe select a little bit from here, and we could bring that in there. All right, great. And, you know, there's a little bit on there, but it's pretty close. You guys get the idea. So by using that tool there, we can just quickly fix that, and now, instead of seeing all the scaffolding, we can see that. Now, what would happen if we didn't have this exact one over here? Well, let me show you something. What you can do, and this is where I'm just going to rasterize this. This is where we can use our transform on drop. So let's go here. So say we only had the big one. We could go in here, we could select that big one. In fact, why don't we make that larger, fit the screen so you guys can see it better. Transform on drop, let's take that. We would go over here, we would drop it there. And now, if I hold down the Option key, this is going to do it from the center. See, we can shrink it down, but we can do it from the center here. And then all we would do now is just transform this to the size that we want. Now, if you right click on here, or control click, you have the option to flip it and do different things like that. So essentially we could, if we didn't have that, we could take that one there and use that. So what you're looking for is just something in the image. Now, if you didn't have anything else in there, trying to fix that, you can't really fix that. What you would need to do is find another photo and then just grab that particular shape or that particular structure from that other photo and drop it in there. So you have to have something to work from. If you're not working from anything, then you're not retouching anymore, you're illustrating. And in fact, you know, as some of you guys know, I do a lot of photorealistic illustration, or at least I have in the past. And a lot of that came from retouching where I didn't have source material. And when I first started retouching, I couldn't go online and find these things, and it wasn't Adobe Stock and all those things. You just had to work with what you had. Whereas these days, it's very easy to go and find images of different things, and then you can just kind of Frankenstein it. So you can basically just grab a part of an image from somewhere else and bring it in. That is easier than recreating something from scratch. All right, so that's our Taj Mahal. And I'm sure I'm not even saying it right, but let's go in here and do a little bit more adjustment. So let's choose our filter. Let's go to our camera raw filter. And let's see what we could do. Now we could move this into the bluer tones, and I'm going to turn it into some of the pinker tones. There we go. I just want to give this a nice little kind of a feel. Let's recover our highlights a little bit. Open up, actually we're not going to open up the shadows at all. Let's take our exposure down. Recover those highlights and let's punch the whites a little bit. Hit those blacks. Okay, let's turn the exposure up a little bit more. Alright, so we're just kind of trying to bring attention to this. You know what I'm going to do is I'm just going to reset these colors. And we're going to go into the white balance. And why don't we choose our white balance tool here. And I'm just looking for an area of white or neutral gray. Notice that we don't have them, and that's because this image here is did not have the raw options enabled on the camera when it was shot. So if your camera has those raw settings, you'll see all of those in there. But the other thing we can do too is we can go into the profile, and you might find some color profiles you might want to use in here as well. That's kind of nice right there. I like that. And then all we need to do is we can close out from that. Let's close those down, hit the back button. Right, great. And now we're bringing out some of the details. So let's hit those highlights a little stronger. And maybe I am going to hit those shadows and bring down saturation. And see what we're doing now is we're bringing out some of those colors that are in the image. Now you might want to do something, let's just do this just for fun. We're going to take what we learned. Let's start at the top. We're going to drag down just a little bit. And these are these. I'm just going to reset all of those by hitting the reset button. And let's bring that temperature to the cooler, and I'm just going to put a little bit of those pinks in there. Let's pull it down. Let's take those highlights down. Notice I'm not just turning the exposure down, because sometimes I can put blacks in there. I'm taking the highlights and I'm pulling that down first. Let's see what we can do with this color. Putting a little color in there. It's kind of interesting. And let's go from the bottom. Let's go up. And maybe we'll make that a little warmer. And let's turn the exposure up a little bit more on the bottom. Definitely want to take that contrast down, because that's a very, very high contrast. Open up the shadows a little bit. There we go. And let's see where we're at. All right. So if we started there before and after, maybe now that we've done this, I might just warm up the whole photo just a little bit. Just see what that does. Just breathing on the color temperature, see what it does. And we're going to click OK. And we can see there's a before and there's the after. So before, we've got the scaffolding. It's kind of dirty looking. Here we've cleaned it up and got rid of that scaffolding. All right. Let's have a look at another one. And in a little bit, we'll look at questions and answers. A virtual polarizer, you're right, Tracy. All right, so let's have a look here. And Michelle Cheeseman, we've got a interesting photo here. And this is something, let me just open this up inside of Photoshop. We've got a rainbow. So what we want to do is we want to pop this rainbow. Now, I'm just going to hit Control J to copy it. And we're going to go into Camera Raw. So let's choose Filter, Camera Raw, Filter. Now, watch what happens if I increase the saturation. It gets our rainbow color better, but it's also really making the sky go, and this ground is like a little too much. So what we want to do is hit our vibrance. And notice by hitting the vibrance, this will make the rainbow color increase faster than saturation. Saturation moves it across the board. Vibrance adds more saturation to the areas that have less color to start with, and less color to the more colorful areas. In fact, I did a whole tutorial on saturation versus vibrance. Check that out. So, we could go crazy with this, but let's not go too crazy. Let's just boost it a little bit and then click OK. So now if we look at the before and after, we can see that rainbow is popping. There's a lot more I could have done with it, but I just wanted to keep this pretty subtle. And that's using that setting. Now, if I'd gone heavier, well, let's just do it just for fun, just to show you guys. So there we go, boosting it even more. Now we start to get a little too much, so what we would do is just apply the layer mask. Just grab a brush. And then I would just paint it away on some of the areas that I didn't want to apply quite so much. And let's take this flow down really low. And maybe just paint around the sky just a little bit to reduce some of that saturation there. And then we're just kind of emphasizing it more on the rainbow. So before and after, you can see it's subtle. Now you could go, really heavy, but the trick to that is we want to hit that vibrance and then just mask out the areas you don't want, but don't go right up to the edge. Go for a soft edge brush and blend it in so you don't have, this obvious area where you've adjusted it in the sky. All right, let's go for another one. And this one here is an interesting question. So we've got Doug Curry is asking this question. And the question he's asking is the halo problem. And let me just zoom in here. So the halo problem that he's talking about is, I believe, is the branch eater. So this is too dark. This image is too dark. So if we wanted to brighten it up, we can move our exposure up. But notice as we do this, these branches or these fine detail areas disappear. See that? And one of the things I thought about is, well, we can go dark where it shows, create a silhouette, create a mask, and cut it out, and all that stuff. But we don't need to do all that. Instead of just reaching for the exposure, if we use the shadows, the shadow highlight, notice that as we increase that, it doesn't affect the shadows. And now, by not affecting those shadows, it's not eating the branches. So if you're worried about that, like things getting destroyed, all we need to do is just use the shadow slider, avoid the brightness. Now, if we want to bring back some of the color in the background, we can recover the highlights. So we're going to see a little bit more of the clouds in the background. See what we're doing here? And we can bring out that color in the foreground. And essentially, before and after, we're bringing out our detail without losing the detail here on our leaves. Let's just straighten this because it needs straightening. So I just click on the crop tool, and then we're just going to grab our straighten tool. And we've got a horizon there. Why don't we just drag it along there? Nice. Go back to our adjustments. And once again, if I warm it up, see the mood, and then if I cool it down, see the mood? See how that mood changes. Now, here's the thing. If you are going to go and cool this down, you also want to pull back the saturation a little bit, maybe even the vibrance. So when we cool it down, you don't want as much color in there, and you also want to push the blacks. Let's go for a little bit more here, a little less in the whites. There we go. And see what we're doing there is changing that mood. So we've got our before and our after. Now, of course, you don't have to reduce that temperature. You can keep the temperature where it was or warm it up. It's up to you. Just double click on there. Now, I don't want to hit that exposure. We could reduce this contrast significantly. Look at this. Or we can punch it up, go for more of that silhouette. But we're not losing those edges because of the shadow highlight. Let's pull the contrast down a little bit. You know what I'm going to do? I want this to look a little bit foggy. So why don't we take our dehaze, and instead of cutting the haze, take it to the left a little bit and add a little bit of haze. There we go. Now we're starting to get a little bit of a mood. Let's go grab our radial filter. Let's go around our shape here, our tree. And I want to work on the outside. So let's see what's happening. This is working on the outside. Nice. Take our color temperature down a little bit. Take our exposure down a little bit. So it's just kind of darkening that. I might push the contrast a little bit here. And let's see where we're at. Okay, so what I want to do is, this is no feather, and then it's just build that feather. We're just going in there. I don't want to do that. I just want to keep this subtle. So let's do that. And in fact, let me just take this saturation down. Even lower on the outside area. And I'm just kind of breathing on that. Let's do that feather more. Much, much more. All right, great. So notice now we're totally changing that. Maybe a little too much dehaze. Let's pull back on that just a little bit. And then if we look at this before and after, see what we've done is we've completely changed the mood of this. Let's open this as an object inside of Photoshop. See, we've got this really nice kind of cold morning, kind of a chill there. Let me just duplicate the layer here, and let's change the blend mode here. So we could do the same thing here with a soft light. See what we're doing if we want to bring just a little bit more of that contrast in here. And I'm going to have that on the tree, but not in the background. So we're going to create a layer mask. And with this layer mask selected, let's just grab the B key. I want to paint away into the background. And see what we're doing now is we're pushing the background away. Because as things get further away, they have less contrast, more atmospheric perspective, and we're just kind of painting that away in the background. Now let me just try something here with this object selection tool and choose select subject and see if it gets the tree. Yes, it did. Look at that. It got the tree beautifully. Command-Shift-I to inverse this. And now I'm going to grab a brush and just paint it away behind it now that we've got the tree protected. Notice I'm not just filling it. The reason I'm not filling it is because I don't want to affect the foreground here. I want to keep this sharp. Alt or Option lets me check the mask, and I can see on the mask there's areas I missed. So let's just go right up there. So we're literally using this mask to help us. And let me go for a soft edge brush. And I'm just gently blending this in. The reason I'm going to blend this in is because I want that contrast and everything in the front. I don't want to lose that. Because otherwise the depth is going to be messed up, because the stuff closer to the camera's got more contrast and the stuff further away has less. So you can see what we're doing here. And if I wanted to make that even more prevalent, I could go to a highlight and you can see what we've done there. A little much. Let me just pull it back, split the difference, and that's what we have there. So let me just save this. And we're going to put this into the tree. Let me put this live from lockdown. Fix my photo. Episode 40. Are you there, Doug Curry? Let me see. Is Doug in the house? And hit save. Alright. So let's have a look, and maybe we can see how these look before and after. So there we go. There's our before and after. Well, it's actually, I guess it's not the complete before, because I've already kind of made some of those changes there. So anyway, so that's essentially what we have here. Let me see, did I save the original? I guess I didn't, because I did it in the raw file. Okay, so if we wanted to see the original, what I'd have to do is go back into the raw and reset that. Why don't we do that? Now here's the thing, if I duplicate this, everything that happens in there, I change one smart object, it's going to change them all. So if I want to create a unique instance of a smart object, what I do is I right click and then I choose to new smart object via copy. I'll show you this in a sec. And let's go back into here to our camera raw and let's reset. Holding down the Alt or the Option, let's hit reset. Where are we? Reset basic. There we go. And click OK. Make sure we're not using this. Let's get rid of that. Hit the delete key. Select that. Hit the delete key. There we go. And click OK. And now there's our before. So if we look at this here, there's before and there's after. Looks like there's a little bit here in between some of these leaves that I missed. And I could just, go in there and, taking a little bit more time and doing better selections than I did. You could refine those selections using quick select, or in fact, what I would do here if I wanted to select it, let me just show you. I would choose select, then I would grab color range, and then you want to grab that area in the trees here. Let me just click on there, hit the plus key, and I want to select some of these other areas. I'm adding to that selection, play around with that fuzziness. There's our edges, click OK. And now with those selected, I want to find out where I am. Let me go into my mask here. Undo that. Okay, so yeah, Command-Shift-I. So that means we're switching this, and now I'm just going to go in for a small little brush. I'm not just going to fill it, but let's turn everything up to 100, and then I would just go into these little areas here. There we go for black brush, and you can just slowly see what we're doing. We're just painting in between. So you can just go in here and then just do the cleanup. See what we're doing? I don't just want to fill it over everything because then we're going to run into the problem of losing some stuff. But notice we're preserving those little fine twigs and branches because we're doing that selection. And this is how you would get in there. See what we're doing? And just clean it up. Let me just do a little bit. I'm not going to do the whole thing because, it's just repetitive. But I think you guys can see what I'm doing here. Control D, and notice the left-hand side. See how we're starting to fix those. And you would just continue to do that and get rid of all those little areas in between the leaves. And then you're going to be done. So anyway, guys, what I want to do here is I think we're going to close out for those of you who, who have got to run. And then we're going to do questions and answers. So hold your questions and answers for just a second. And we're going to do our afterglow. So if you guys got to go, thanks for watching. Please, if you're watching the replay, drop a comment and let us know what you like and what you would like to learn next week. Also, if you like this, you got any value out of it, hit that like button right now. Helps us with the algorithm. And if you haven't yet subscribed to Photoshop Cafe, hit the subscribe button. And until next time, I'll see you at the cafe. Alright guys, so I'm back afterglow, so I'll just let everybody say ciao for those people who've got to go. And then what we can do is, hold your questions just for now because we'll wait for everyone to go, and then the questions, will be easier for me to find them because a lot of people are going to say, see ya, see you guys, thank you, Joey, Linda. I hope it was fun this week. Right, Shelley, good to see you there, buddy. Glad you're here. So if you're hanging out for afterglow, just wait around just about a minute. We'll start. And if you guys are got to bail, I know for some of you it's late at night, so sleep well, have a good time, and see you next Thursday at 1 p.m. Pacific time. And also don't forget, I do a new tutorial each week at photoshopcafe.com and also on YouTube. And that's live on Tuesdays. So when you guys get up on Tuesday morning, it will be waiting for you. Unless, of course, you're in Australia and New Zealand, then it's probably going to be Monday night. But depending on your time zone. All right, thank you, SJK. Glad you're from Holland there. Pigeon River rejected the message. Nils, good to see you. Photo Maker, good to see you. What have we got here? Rod Shelley, if he had 1/1000th of my knowledge, he'd be in heaven. No, you'd be like me. You'd be like, oh man, how does that go again? Trust me, I've forgotten more than I know. See, that would be my luck going all the way to having the scaffolding one of the spires. Oh, yeah. That has been me more than one time. Rod on going to different places. 16:9 aspect ratio. Yeah, that's. Are you asking how to get a 16:9, or might be missing some stuff there? How to get a 16:9 aspect ratio is pretty easy. You just go into the crop tool and then just choose 16 in one field and then 9. Make sure that the width goes in first and then the height. If you change the blend mode to hue saturation to color, won't you maintain more of the luminosity from below? Yes. Yes, to a certain degree, you will. Hue saturation is not so obvious as, when you're applying a color, but Ashton, yes, you're right, you will. Horizontal rotation in ACR, not color, but I'm not quite sure what you mean there, photo. If you want to expand that, we got it. Ray likes it warm. Okay, we're going way back. Hang on, let's go here. You've got it, Russ. Another great LFL, thank you. Your first time watching? Well, thanks, Jim. I'm glad that you enjoyed it. Thanks for joining us live, and hopefully you can make some more of the live ones. Great to have you with us. Keith has a better understanding of color toning. Don't worry, we've got plenty more we can do. Andreas, do you know the masks in camera raw with the selective? Is that the Andreas I know? do you use the... I'm not sure what the aerial masks in Camera Raw with the selective edit. What's the aerial mask? Not quite sure what you're asking there. But I do use some of the masks in Camera Raw, yes. Luminosity masks, maybe? Yeah. Greetings, what do we got here? I want that mech behind you. Yeah, that's Sideshow Collectibles made that. I got it at Comic-Con, right? That's the one, of course, from Avatar. 10 p.m. here in UK. How would 16:9 look on the one image you processed? Well, let's have a look. Photo Maker. Oh, the one. Let's have a look. Let me put you on the desk and see how that would look. Is the one with the rainbow. That would be Michelle Cheeseman. 16:9. Let's have a look. Let's grab our crop tool. Ratio 16. Tab 9. Oh, good call. I think this would look really nice. Let's put the third right there, right on the line. Following the rules of thirds to a T. And let's apply that. Yeah, I think that looks pretty nice. Good call. I'll go with that. The 16:9 looks good. Sorry, I use the German version. Oh, so I don't know the translation. Okay, well I have covered that a lot. Let me just show you. I believe this is what you're talking about. Let's go to the filter here, Camera Raw filter, and say we were applying a gradient and we wanted to darken the sky but not the mountain. I believe this is what you're referring to. And let's just take the exposure down. We're going to go really far. So the answer to your question is yes, range mask. So we might use our luminance. And with our luminance selected, we want to go this way or go the other way. There we go, preserving the dark colors. So it takes it away from there. Yeah, I could do that. Or the other one is color. And then you select the color at the sample. Whoops, what did I do there? Color sample, there we go. So now it's just applying to the mountains, or if we want to apply to the blues, we click on the blues, and that hides it there. Change that down a little bit though. Maybe make a selection, there we go. Or around there on the blues. And you can protect that mountain. Yep, these are things that, yes. So to answer that question, yes, I do use the range mask. I use it quite a bit, and some of our other tutorials I've done here, it's on there too. All right. Well, I'm glad that Peter said he learned a lot. That's awesome. Thank you, Heshman Muhammad. Good tip, making a selection in the channels. Yeah, that works handy. Obviously we were fortunate that it was in red. I'm glad I answered your question. Great. Thanks, Chris. Yeah, another great LFL. So how are you guys doing this week? So I know that there's a lot of stuff going on right now. A lot of stuff. There's lockdowns being implemented in some places. Things are getting worse in other places. However, I heard this morning, a glimmer of hope that they say things have peaked in the U.S. So it sounds like things are, could possibly get better from here on out. And of course, with the vaccine being distributed, that's definitely going to help. So looks like, we're going to be here for a little bit longer, but, here's hoping that we're past the worst of it. But how are you guys doing? All of that aside, how we're dealing with the virus. How are you dealing with lockdown? I hope you guys are doing okay. I know for some of us, being stuck at home, some of you got kids that are not at school, probably driving you crazy. Some of you are alone, and this is one of your outlets, and this is why we're here. Number one, for people that are alone, this is, you've got your family here, the cafe family, the cafe crew. For those of you who are maybe just around non-artistic people, you're locked down with a group, your bubble or your pod. There's no photographers or artists, and so you're looking for somewhere, to get with fellow like-minded people. This is where we are. Or maybe you're just overwhelmed with other things, other things that people talk about a lot, or, uncomfortable things, or just divisive things, or whatever it would be, or just ugly things in the world. This can also be escape. One of the nice things about art is art brings people together, and also it's an escape, and it's a therapy. For me, I can sit there and create an image, and the other things go away. I put on some good music, and then just start editing. I'm not shooting as much, obviously, not doing as much, especially right now, travel or no travel at all right now. So this is a good time to go through your old photos, sort through them, brings back some memories, of course, which can be nice. And then also, you just take your time and work on the photos for those of you who are fortunate to have that time. For me, a lot of my business is online, so I don't have all that much recreation time that some people have, because I'm working. I'm making tutorials. I'm making YouTube tutorials. I'm writing newsletters. I'm putting content on the website and doing stuff like that. So I'm busy. It's just nice that we can come together, and for retired people too. Yeah, like Dana, it's nice to have that. Hopefully this is instructional and you guys are learning things, but more than that, hopefully this is inspirational, that maybe it inspires you or motivates you to want to do some things, or also you guys can come together with this family and feel a part of something. This is our goal. So Jim says he's been scanning the thousands of negatives took 40 years ago. Wow. Is there any difference between a digital camera pixel compared to a scan of a negative? Oh, yes. There's a big difference. They're the opposite, Jim. I'm sure you probably noticed by now, but with a digital image, or an image shot with a digital camera, it's a positive image, meaning that there's a lot of detail and density in the blacks, in the darks, because of the way it works. So you can easily bring out details in the darks. Beware of noise if you go too far. But the highlights, when the highlights are blown out, that detail's gone forever. You can't really get it back. It's gone. So you've got to watch those highlights when you're shooting. When you're working with a negative, it's the opposite. Those, your density is in your highlight areas, as you know, and you can bring out details in those highlights, but the shadows are the problem. It was always a problem with film, is those shadows plug up the dark areas and it's just black. You can't bring it back. So that's the opposite problem than what we have with digital. So yeah, there's a big difference when it comes to that. And then just practical stuff. You're going to be dealing with scratches and, and damage. It's very hard to scan a negative and not have it damaged. So, the actual substance that you're working with, the emulsion, is different. Whereas a digital file, it's more you're dealing with those pixels. You're dealing with that. You're not dealing with the surface that it was put on. Like the sensor, especially if you're shooting raw, it doesn't really take anything away. Whereas, when you're shooting film, you've got to get it onto that negative, or you've got to print it onto that positive. So there's a generational loss there. So it's a little bit there. Rod scanned all his slides a couple of years ago, 4800 DPI are massive. They would be massive. Yeah, you can see a lot of grain. However, do you guys like grain? I know that if you're doing CG like Rod does, and you're doing compositing and stuff, grain is not really very good. It can become very difficult to work with unless you add that. Whereas you get digital noise, but with cameras these days, you're getting less and less noise as the sensors are getting better. So, that's not an issue like it used to be, and it's easier to composite and combine images. However, there's a beauty and a nostalgia to the grain. Some people really enjoy the look of the grain, on the high ISA film. I know when I look at the old black and white 800s, or even higher, there's a little bit of grain there, and that can be pleasing, but the digital noise is not quite so pleasing. Photomaker, practicing different photo techniques, trying to teach yourself dimension. Thanks, Photomaker. And I know you want to do some dimension, and we will do some dimension. We'll add that. So what would you guys like to see for Live for Lockdown, for the LFL? Is there anything that, maybe we're not covering that you guys would really love to see covered in here? Let me know. Just drop that into the comments and I can consider that. Orcapest, good to see you again. Another regular. Lockdown in Canada. Delay in vaccine delivery. We don't know when. We'll get some more. Happy to be here. Yeah, I heard about that. So hopefully you guys can get that and things can get distributed quickly and you guys can be on the right path. Got my first COVID-19 shot yesterday. Well, congratulations on that, Jane. Have been doing more drawing and painting and embroidery and writing and plus playing on Photoshop. Your class has been so great. Well, thank you. So I'm glad that you've found an outlet and lots of things to do here. Epson V550 or 700 series are good for slides. Next, okay. You got it, Orcapest. All right, guys. So I'm going to screen capture all these comments so I know sometimes I might miss a comment. While we're doing it live, but I actually go afterwards and I read every single comment afterwards. So I'll screen capture those and sometimes I'll address those. So the LFL will be on YouTube, the replay will be live. Any questions I miss here, that are kind of easy for me to answer in writing, I'll drop an answer right there on the comment section on YouTube. And also you can check out photoshopcafe.com under free tutorials. If you go down under live streams, you can see all the replays are all archived there as well. So anyway, guys, I am absolutely starving. I'm going to go get something to eat. So thanks for joining us. I'm going to sign out here. It was our Afterglow. Got 20 minutes worth here. So until next time, guys, I'll see you at the cafe.